Peace and love, everybody. This is Cortland Colonial coming at you live and direct from ourselflawandmaster.com, giving you all the remedy tour, the specialty, the up close and online version. And we're going to talk about a lot of things today. And most importantly, we're going to talk about how our people got to the position that we're in today. And, just break it down in details through history and commercial wise so that we can understand and get a clear view of where we need to go here in the future and how we can get there in the future. So, I'm not going to do too much talking on this introduction. We're just going to get right into it. Laying down the foundation and understanding the basics. These are the basics that everybody should know. These are the basics that everybody should understand. Okay, and it's just the basics of who we are and where we come from and how long we've truly been on this planet. Okay, now I would like to start with first understanding and knowing the Pangea. All right, and the Pangea goes back millions and millions of years ago, long before there was ever a plate tectonic shift and they split into 7 continents. Okay, all right, and if you know, like I know, they have artifacts. Like the London Hammer that goes back, over hundreds of million years ago, and these are real artifacts you can actually look up on Google and see that they found and things like that prove there was human existence hundreds of millions of years ago. And my question is who do you think were alive during those times? It was us. It was our own people, because we've been here for millions and millions of years, y'all. You know what I'm saying? We are an ancient people, and we started off in the Pangea. Okay, and we walked this entire globe. We didn't just sit in one part that was going to be Africa and wait for the world to split before we went out there and started voyaging the rest of the planet. Nah, we walked the entire Pangea, and that's very important that we understand, because we are ancient people and we do not just derive from some place called Africa. Okay? What we are not. Understanding their classification system. And this is very important for Latinos and for so-called African Americans, because they have mislabeled you in their system. And this is the IRS proof, the OMB proof, Office of Management and Budget, to prove how they're labeling you as civilly dead people. So first, let's go on to question 1. Are you Hispanic or Latino? First and foremost, there is no Hispanic nation and there is no Latino nation. There's no Latinadonio. There's no Hispanicdonia. Like those nations do not exist. Those are shadow statuses. Okay. All right. Those are labels. So no, I don't care where you're from or whatever, you brown, whatever. No, you circle no. If you are Latino, you circle no there. All right. I don't care what your heritage or your connection is to it, and y'all don't want it. That's a slave status. You check no. So for question number 2, it says American Indian. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of North and South America, and who maintains tribal affiliation or community attachment. Key word in there. Origins in any of the original peoples. Okay, let's move on to Asian. An Asian person is a person having origins in any of the original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia. Let's go on to Native Hawaiian. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of Hawaii, Guam, Samoa, and other Pacific Islands. Let's move on to white. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, of North Africa. But the catch is, check it out, when you get over here to black or African American, it says it's a person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. So y'all don't come from no original peoples like everybody else. Y'all just come from black racial groups. Well, I'll be damned. Where is Blackadonia at? Is that a country? Is that a nation in Africa? I've never been there. I've never heard of it. Neither have you. That's because that's a civilly dead status, and you all are not being affiliated with the original people. And that's why you really truly don't get treated like human beings. You're not even registered as one within their system. And you all claim this brand so proudly, this black and this African American pride. That's why they keep y'all kicked on that like that, because they already know that that's a civilly dead status and they have all right to wipe you out. Okay? All legal right. Moving along. What is MOOR? Because I know a lot of people ask this question, and it's kind of a big confusion kind of going on with, in the community with this. And, like I said, even I've knew some things, I've learned things in the past, and, more information has been brought to me, and I've been able to, kind of even alter my views on how I see certain things. So MOOR is broad. It's much bigger than the Moroccan Empire, y'all. MOOR has many breakdowns and definition. A man is not MOOR just because he's a part of the Moroccan Empire. Okay, by definition terms, according to the Black's Law Dictionary that they are using against us every day in the court of law, MOOR means an officer in the Isle of Man who summons the court for several shootings. Okay, it's an officer in the Isle of Man. Okay, because we have power. All right, now a man can be a blackamoor. Black being the adjective that describes the way he looks. MOOR being the noun because he is a person. Nouns are people. Okay. And I know if you've ever seen like that, what is it? The Black Knight or whatever that is with Martin Lawrence, where he's playing the knight or whatever. They kept calling him MOOR, all in the movie. They weren't saying MOOR from Morocco or MOOR Moreno from the Philippines or MOOR from Maroon from Jamaica. They were just saying blackamoor. They were saying that this man was black by description and look, but he was a MOOR. Okay, that's all that was. And MOOR is kind of like a word I would like to say that's been kind of thrown on us, but it's to associate us as an Aboriginal people all across the globe. That's how they identify us in this. It's a title I would like to say that's been given to us over time. And I would like to say it was given to us, by a foreigner, that was just assigned to identify us. You know what I'm saying? But as an Aboriginal people, we always identify by our Aboriginal tribes. Okay. Whether it was Choctaw, Cherokee, whatever you want to call it, we always identify by our Aboriginal tribes. Now, when we associate it with all of the Aboriginals as a whole, maybe then, we probably did associate with calling ourselves Moors, Morenos, Maroons, or wherever we were located on the planet. But as a people, as a tribe, we always associated with our tribal affiliations. First and foremost, our tribal bands, for sure. But anyway, we'll keep it moving. MOOR is another word that represents the Aboriginal peoples across the world, like Morenos, Moros, Maroons, Moros, and so forth. MOOR is not a religion, okay? It's more of a universal nationality and connection for all Aboriginal peoples, okay? That's very important. What should we commercially identify as? Great question. For the purpose of commerce, we are to identify as Aboriginals, okay? For the purpose of playing the game, all right, and playing in their system, we want to associate with being Aboriginals. That's what they know us as melanated people here in America as being freemen, as Aboriginals, okay? Now, Aboriginal means of human races, animals, and plants inhabiting or existing in the land from the earliest times or from before the arrival of colonists, aka indigenous. All right. By Black's Law Dictionary definition, Indians are the Aboriginal inhabitants of North America. Now, it's very important. Again, this is a game, and understand for awareness and where we are located at right now, as far as here in America, as far as playing the game, when they say Indians, they're talking about the inhabitants of North America. Now, there's no reason to get all extra analytical. Understand, again, we playing the game, because you'll have some people who want to rock this nationality so hard, that they'll totally dismiss the fact of the playing the game, because we know a true Indian is a person from India, okay? But for the purpose of playing the game in American classifications, we will call ourselves American Indians, Aboriginals, okay? All right. And it's important to know that we are not Native Americans. We are American Indians. Native Americans is something totally different. It is a federal classification controlled by the corporate U.S. system. And we'll talk about Native Americans here later on in the presentation. But Native by definition means a natural born subject or citizen. Okay. Who wants to be a natural subject or citizen? Once you learn that, once you know that, maybe more of my Native American brothers and sisters will drop that federal title and classification and come on back home to the Aboriginal side, all right? And start siding back with their cousins and their first brothers and sisters. It's very important. Nationality is key. Nationality first starts with mother and family. All right, that's the first level of nationality. Whatever your mother want to call yourselves, y'all are the nation of that first and foremost. All right. Now, every nation always has their own crest and flag. As you see here in the pictures, every nation has a crest and flag. Why? Because truly you're operating as a vessel in commercial waters, which is called admiralty law, which is, no different than the commercial waters that you see boats and everything operating in every day. That's what admiralty law is. All right. And you're being handled as if you are a boat, which is why you need to have your own flag. You need to have your own seal, because if you do not have a seal, I'm pretty sure you are wearing the shadow brand of another corporate nation that is not your own. Okay? And until you let it be known that you are operating differently, you have your flag and your seal, until this is public record, until people notice, the system is going to assume that you are operating as a shadow of their corporation. And they're going to treat you as a slave. They're going to handle you as a slave until you put things on notice like a true gentleman. Till you wave your flag, until they see your seal, till they know you operating as your own nation. Okay? Now, there are three main levels to nationality. There's your family, which we already discussed. And then you have your tribal bands, which is your Cherokees, Choctaw, or whatever you want to call it. And then you have your aboriginal race, which is, your Moors, Morenos, Moros, So I don't want to just lock nationality down to one thing, because you'll have a lot of Moors that just be like, nah, man, it's all about nationality. It's more. And they'll just totally leave their whole tribal band and family connection on the table as far as being Choctaws and Cherokees and all of those contracts that we have that we can use in our favor, which is really those treaties. But we'll get into that here deeper. The Americas and the colonists. The colonists arrived, everybody knows, 1492, 1500s, and were subjects. Okay, this is very important. The colonists originally came here and they were subjects of the Britannian Empire. King James was a melanated man who sent these subjects over here to create Jamestown. Okay, King James was not some Caucasian dude or nothing like that. King James was a brother. All right, he was a melanated man. All right, and he came over here to create Jamestown, and that was King James Bible that y'all be reading every Sunday. Okay, and understand that King James always had the mission and the intent to come over here and conquer these American lands, and yet we are still reading his version of the Bible. Well, I'll be damned. If Cortland can't make up his own version of the Bible and feed it to you as truth, as realness, and you put your heart and soul into it, I don't know why you've taken King James's version. But anyway, we're going to keep it moving. During the 1500s through the 1700s, the American Aboriginals taught these colonists how to grow food, live, survive, and be civilized here in America. All right? 1500s through the 1700s, y'all. They were our indentured servants, and many of them were working for us in exchange for land. Okay? Now, many colonists were American servants, like I said, and, the whole terminology slave comes from Slavic, okay? Because truly, again, they were our servants first, all right? Now, over time, the Aboriginals of the American lands signed hundreds of treaties with these colonists. And the Moroccan Empire, though, this is very important to note, really only signed one major treaty that I've been able to just really see that really held major water. It was the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and that was truly for trading purposes. Now, this is what we must understand. In 1776, you had George Washington and this new birth of a nation. They just got their freedom from Britannia in 1776, and then you had George Washington was like, yo, we want to grow this new nation, but, the only way that we'll be able to do it is with food, trade, silk, whatever it was that they were trying to trade with other nations in order to bring in some money. So therefore, in order to trade, they had to go across the waters. But the dilemma was, the Moroccan Empire was the ones who were controlling the waters at that time. There wasn't going to be any shipping or any business going down at that time unless it was going through the Moroccan Empire, who was in power at that time. They were a strong force, and they were the true pirates of the Caribbean at that time. Okay, And basically, George was like, look, man, we'll sign a peace and friendship treaty with you. We basically want to do business. We need to grow our nation. And yo, man, whoever calls yourself Moor or whatever, like, we'll leave them alone. We'll let them be a free man. If they're a part of the Moroccan Empire, we'll let them go. You know what I'm saying? And that's when the Moroccan Empire was like, cool, you got a deal. We'll let you do business out here. Just let all my Moroccan Empire Moors, or whatever you want to call them, around you be safe and secure. You know what I'm saying? Now, all those other blacks or melanated people out there who are just the aboriginal peoples of the land, yo, if they're not a part of the Moroccan Empire, that's their own. They their own nation. That ain't got nothing to do with me. Okay? Now, understand that. Now, not saying that we beefed with the Moroccan Empire's aboriginals here in the land. At the end of the day, it was just these were two separate entities. Okay? Now, understand the aboriginals of the land, signed hundreds and thousands of treaties. There's many Cherokee treaties. There's many Choctaw treaties. There's many Blackfoot. There's many, there's many, how can I say, there's many treaties, supreme law of the lands, that we have contracts with the United States of America as the aboriginal peoples. They didn't sign these hundreds and thousands of treaties with the Moroccan Empire because they were not the people of the land. They were not the aboriginal peoples of the land. Okay, they were not the Cherokees, the Choctaws, or anything like that. They were the Moroccan Empire. So that's very important that we understand that clear, distinct difference, because we as the aboriginals of these lands, we must go back and start claiming our aboriginal tribes, because there's hundreds and thousands of treaties that protect us when we're operating and moving as those aboriginal peoples. Okay, this is why they got us so hard sprung on calling ourselves African, Black, or even, Moors or whatever, because truly at the end of the day, when you don't associate with the aboriginal people of the land, then you don't have any connection to the land or any contracts that protect you. Okay? All right? Now, they have actual contracts laying out exactly where everybody's land at, where what Indians have claims to certain lands. And man, it's just all kind of power within these treaties because they're the supreme law of the land and you can use them against their corporation. Bam. All right. And they can supersede, these treaties can supersede any of their statutes and codes. So why are we not operating as the aboriginals and using them? Now y'all see why they just call you Africans all day? Because when you call yourself Africans, you have no protection. Period. Now, the colonists, freedom, and Charlotte. It's very important that we talk about this lady because she's very important to what was going on at this time period. Queen Charlotte was the wife of King George of the Britannian Empire. Again, King George was a brother. All right. We can look down here at the bottom. They had these pennies that were actually made during his time frame while he was still, in power there, still the king. And you see here, this brother here got, beads on his head. Like that's you know a brother when you see one. We ain't even got to play. We ain't got to play with it, man. So at the end of the day, we know that the true King George, through the artifacts, actually proves that this man was actually a melanated man and not a Caucasian like they tried to teach us in school. So anyway, when colonists wanted their freedom in 1776, they had to beg a melanated man for it over there in Britannia. Okay, so let's understand. These colonists that we, were taught so much about in school that had been here since 1492. Again, they were chattel slaves themselves from, 1492 all the way up to the 1700s. They didn't get their freedom till 1776, and they had to beg a black, melanated man for it. Okay? All right. And eventually, the melanated man was like, look, man, I don't want to let y'all go. Y'all my subjects and y'all belong to me. And that's when the American Aboriginals stepped in and we were like, look, man, they rocking with us now. They've been here for a couple of 100 years. We cool with them. We got no beef. We've traded culture, art, food, all this other kind of stuff. We're going to have to let them go ahead and stay here. And at that time, that's when, King George was like, all right, I ain't got my army together and everything right now, but don't worry, I'll be back. But, he was like, but before I step out, you're going to have to give me something, in return for keeping my subjects. And that's when we all came together and we made him the pitch of like, yo, we see your beautiful wife, Charlotte. How about we just go ahead and name, a piece of land and a county, everything out here after your wife, after your queen. And that's where the whole name of Charlotte, North Carolina came from. We gave that to King George, to keep him off our ass. Well, keep him off the colonists' ass, excuse me, the subjects. And people be like, well, no, it's, there's probably just, they could have named Charlotte or, got it from anywhere. No. Even the county's name is Mecklenburg. And that was Charlotte's Mecklenburg. That was her name. Charlotte Mecklenburg. So this land, this county in North Carolina was named after King George's wife. And that was a notion, and a thanks to give to him for not invading us at that time. Treaties and the Aboriginals. So now that these, well, I guess you could say state citizens got their freedom now, these colonists have finally got their freedom, now it was about, actually putting things in motion and, them trying to gain their power now here in America. But they didn't just do it, overnight. It took time, and they really defeated us through paper and treaties, in the beginning from 1774 until about 1832, treaties between individual sovereign There were treaties between individual sovereign American Indian nations and the U.S., and they were negotiated to establish borders and prescribe conditions of behaviors between the parties. In the beginning, we have respect for each other. They treated us as our own American Indian nations. We were sovereign and we had our own lands, our own borders. And we were like, hey, we'll let y'all stay here and kick it, and we'll just do business with y'all, and we'll give y'all this piece of land, and we'll let y'all, do your own thing, just don't mess with us and we won't mess with y'all, period. Then from 1832 until 1871, it started getting a little bit sketchy. This is when American Indian nations, again, American Indian, this is what they were calling this. American Indian nations were considered to be domestic. All right. Now, somehow we now got converted into their domestic corporation. Between 1832 and 1871, American Indian nations were considered to be domestic. And by that, I mean, we were domestic by doing affiliations with the United States, sovereign nation. We were a part, I guess, in cohets. We were now a part of them. A lot of us signed treaties that they gave over our power to United States and said that, we were now a part of their nation and a part of, of basically their system, and they were protecting us. That was their job, as us being different sovereign Aboriginal tribes. Anyway, so they basically, though, at that time, we were dependent nations. They, instead of us rocking together as a squad, as different tribes all coming together as a union, they broke us all apart, independent tribes, and they started making treaties with us, individually, and negotiated treaties between tribes, and the U.S. had to be approved through the U.S. Congress. But anyway, it was a plan that was going on, and it was like, all right, let's break them apart, let's separate and divide them, and let's make certain treaties with certain tribes, and if certain ones aren't going, cool, we'll just go on to another tribe, and the tribes that will be with our plan and will be down with what we're trying to do, we'll give them money, we'll give them land, and just all kind of stuff. So anyway, between 1832 and 1871, this is when the breaking up our family really started here as American Indians. All right. Then in 1871, this is after the Civil War. This is when basically, this is when the de facto government here in America was erected. This is when the Union took over. This is when the United States was now ran and backed by the Union. And basically, this is when the Naturalization Act was signed in 1871, which actually, erected their erected their de facto government, and de facto, I mean by non-authentic. It wasn't real. It wasn't created with the Aboriginal peoples, the peoples of these lands. It wasn't through a real organic constitution. It was purely a nation that was created as a de facto corporation, basically doing business on our lands here in America. So anyway, in 1871, when we basically crossed over into this de facto nation now, the House of Representatives seized recognitions of individual tribes. Let me go back. Excuse me. They seized individual recognition of individual tribes, and they started looking at them as independent nations with whom the United States could contract by treaty with, and basically, they basically just ruined the whole way of how we have been communicating with them for over 100 years now. you know, and basically they changed the game. They ceased recognizing us as tribes. They, you know, and this is when the whole game of them even, you know, slowly infiltrating us into their system as the Negroes, the blacks, and everything like that. This is how they pushed us into their systems. After 1871, they stripped us of our Aboriginal tribal names. Then they started calling us blacks, and then they all pushed us into certain Indian territories, and they put us on, you know, reservations. You know, once they stripped us of our nationality, then we were just shadow property. We were, you know, dead, civilly dead people out here, civil leader mortus. And basically they could just, you know, they pushed us into certain lands and certain areas through treaties and through threat, you know, and they were like, yo, hey, if y'all don't move over here to this territory, you know, as, you know, especially as being blacks now, they could tell us what to do just because we were stateless beings. We didn't have anybody there that could come and protect us. You know what I'm saying? And no other nation from around the world even had the right to come and protect us because we were operating in a stateless, you know, in a stateless being, like as stateless beings. We didn't, you know, like they had all right. We were shadowed. So anyway, that's just how it happened from 1774 to 1871, and how they slowly, you know, pulled us from our land and took things from us through treaties. They didn't just come here and say, everybody down, hit the ground, we're taking your land. No, they took it from us through treaties and bribery and things like that. And this is really truly 1871 is when they started coming up with these federal Indians and stuff too. Real hard, just because of the simple fact they were like, all right, you Indian tribes that work with us, you'll be federally recognized, and we'll give you, you know, we'll give you money, we'll give you land, we'll give you casinos, whatever it is that you want. But it's like, cool, you know, we're going to give you some reserved land on your own reservation. And that's crazy that this foreign corporation could come over here to our Aboriginal lands and give us, okay, reserved land on our own land. How crazy is that? That just lets you know how deep we weren't operating as ourselves. Period. Now, I use the Republic of California because I wanted to let it be known that there are two different governments in operation. And California really demonstrates it better than most states, you know, because they still have republic left on their actual flag. Now, the thing is, every single state has a republic, and every single state has a, what do you call it? A corporation. Okay, there's two governments. For instance, you know, there's California, the Republic, which is a sovereign state that was created in the early 1800s, and that was a constitution that was written with the Aboriginal peoples. Every single republic was written with that was a government that was created with the Aboriginal peoples. Okay. Always. You can't have an organic government, an organic republic, unless you're writing it with the peoples of that land, the original peoples of the land. So every single republic was written by Aboriginals and state citizens coming together to work together to write these, you know, governments. But like I said, after 1871, things got funny because the Union basically won the Civil War, and they said, all right, forget operating through the Republic anymore. In these sovereign states, we're going to operate as a corporation in the states of now. So again, in California, you have California, the Republic, which is for the sovereign people who want to operate sovereignly. And then you have the state of California, because when you go to court, you know, it doesn't say California Republic like the flag is calling you in the court. No. It says the state of California. All right. We need to understand that these are two different entities. The Republic is for the sovereign and who want to act and move like men under the general laws protected under the Constitution. And then you have, of course, the corporate, the state of California, which is for shadow citizens, 14th Amendment slaves who want to be treated and controlled by the corporation there in your state. So it's very, very, very important that we understand those two differences, the republic and the corporation, sovereign and de facto, fate. All right. The 1800s and the Civil War. Now, this is very important to understand, too. The Civil War had a small amount to do with slavery, but rather the Union versus the Confederate States, who were fighting over land, who were fighting over farming, who were fighting over all that kind of stuff, man. Freedom, really, truly. And because, like I said, the Union was really, truly backed by Britannia, okay? And Britannia was coming back to really get their subjects, man. That's what this was all about. You know, they left in the late 1700s, but King George said, watch, I'm going to be back and I'm going to come get my subjects. But for now, I'll take this little gesture, you naming this land after my wife, but I still want my subjects and I still want this American land that King James had always originally wanted to begin with. All right. So anyway, it's just very important to know that, these Caucasians, these state citizens were actually fighting with a lot of the Aboriginal peoples, and we were the Confederate States, y'all. You know what I'm saying? We actually operated right along with the Confederacy too. We as Aboriginals were a part of the Confederation. Okay? It's very, very important to know. And if you've ever seen this movie called Free State, it's on Netflix. You should go see it. I believe Matthew McConaughey is like the main actor. They show you in there that the farmers and some of these slave descendants, the Aboriginal peoples were actually fighting hand to hand against the Union in that movie. All right, and that was the South. That was the Confederacy. All right. Now, King George always planned on, coming back to control his subjects, as we said, and his plan was to fund the Union until the Confederacy finally collapsed and gave in the 1870s. And that's what happened in 1871. They went ahead and waved that white flag. That's when they went ahead and erected the Naturalization Act. And that's when basically, the de facto corporation, the de facto government ran by Britannia really started here in 1871. And from then on, that's when they slowly but surely started influencing our people to come over to their nation, their United States nation that was operating here in America. And they slowly started making us drop our African American. They slowly started making us drop our Aboriginal tribal names like Cherokee, Choctaw, and all that good stuff. And they started giving us titles like blacks, coloreds, Negroes, and things like that. These were brands that gave them the permission to actually slave us. All right. Okay. Because once you drop your nationality and your tribal family, and then you just out here in the world just saying I'm a stateless person, then yeah, anybody has the right to bring you harm and control you, man, as a stateless being. All right. Now, many of the Aboriginal tribes fought along the Confederacy and state citizens against the Union to protect their homelands and their farms. And as you see here, Confederate states and the Aboriginals, we were called, back then we were fighting as the Cherokee Confederate, Cherokee Braves. And this is our Cherokee Confederate flag. As you see down here at the bottom, the Seminole and the Muskogee flags. And it's funny because the main thing you see that sticks out is that star and crescent moon. And of course, it's because we used to practice the sciences of Islam, I, self, law, and master, which was science. It was not a religion. Okay. And it's funny just because as soon as 1871 happened, and of course Britannia takes over, somehow we lost all of this Islam connection and we started calling ourselves Christians. Then we started calling ourselves blacks and African Americans. We left all of our culture, our heritage, our nationality, our true spiritual practices all behind to pick up the Britannians' way. You understand? And then if you actually look here on the quarter, it'll show you right there in South Carolina now, the man has on a fez and he has a flag with the crescent moon on it, y'all. That was because they were fighting with us during the Civil War. Many of these Caucasians or state citizens, as you want to call them, they were fighting with our symbolism and all of that, y'all. They were fighting with us, with our paraphernalia on, waving our kind of flags, waving our symbols, okay? How the hell did we forget who we were? It's time to go back, y'all. And they put it right here in your face just to let you know. All right? The switch up. After the Confederate States fell to the Union in the 1870s, the Britannian Empire paid to reconstruct the Americas after destruction, which led them to being forever indebted commercially. Okay? They loaned them some money to fix everything and we never got out of debt. Period. Never since the 1870s, we still in debt, still paying this off, which is the whole reason why, the Pope and all them, the Crown, they still own the states out here. All right. Basically, because they loaned us out and now, we still paying off that debt. That's what your taxes are. Your taxes are literally going back to the Crown, paying them off for the debt that's owed to them. All right. Now, this is when the Naturalization Act of 1871 was signed that put the United States in de facto operation, as we've already discussed. And again, pre-1871, Most of the states, most states were created with the Aboriginal peoples and the state citizens coming together. That was a de jure way of doing things, the natural way, the organic way, because those state citizens knew they couldn't have a organic republic, a true sovereign government, unless they created it with the true sovereign organic people of those lands. That's what de jure means, organic, like organic food. Then you have de facto. De facto means like altered, fake, modified. That's like GMO. Okay, that's a de facto government. After 1871, we started operating in a de facto government, and we started amending the constitutions. Okay, and we started amending the constitutions with codes and statutes that weren't written or added in with the Aboriginal peoples. Okay, that's when they started creating all these laws and codes and statutes to control us as slaves. That's when they started creating all these, basically, in the code and the statutes, it's like no different than working at Apple and they say, all right, on Friday, we can't wear no blue jeans and white shirts. That's code. Okay. And that's what they started doing with the Constitution. And since they were operating in a de facto or fraudulent way, and everybody was out of their natural state, we were all operating as fake fraudulent people now. We were all operating as slaves, as blacks, as Negroes. We didn't have any power, so they could rule our lives as de facto, entities. So basically, that's how they could come up with these codes and statutes and apply them to us. It was because we opted into their jurisdiction. How did we opt into their jurisdiction in the 1800s when the birth certificates didn't come into the 1900s? Easily, I'm going to tell you how. We opted into their jurisdiction through voting rights. Okay? That was federal. Okay? All right? And we had made all these marches and did all these things. We wanted to be so a part of their system so much. They said, all right, now, blacks, since, we'll let you in our system now, how about we'll make this official and you all come sign up to vote in our system? All right. Understand, you can't be in my system voting for nothing if you ain't a part of it. Okay. So that means when they signed up to freely opt in and vote and register to be a voter under the under the U.S. system, they automatically gave up their rights and opted into their federal jurisdiction. Okay. As chattel. Voting rights is probably the most, that voting ID or whatever, that's probably one of the most threatening, killer things that we could ever do to ourselves. If y'all have a voter's ID, you need to rescind that and send it back and cancel it, y'all. That's what automatically puts you in their federal jurisdiction to be controlled. And if martial law ever jumped off, they have all right to come and collect your body as their as property, within their trust. Period. All right. Yeah, it's deep out here. Now, after 1871, again, that'll just put us in a de facto manner. All right. That's when they just took over as a fake government. Now, it didn't get official now until 1925 when they actually incorporated and created a whole corporation, a real one, right there in Florida, y'all, 1925. And if you know, like I know, every single corporation comes with stock. Who's the stock? You are. You all are the live stock of the corporation, okay? And that birth certificate, all right, that is actually your certificate to their, that's your stock certificate to their actual corporation. Everybody was born with a piece of the pie, all right? You were born into this corporation. That's when the birth certificates start coming. That's when the birth certificates started coming in, and basically, man, that's when the U.S. dollar crashed too as well. And I want to give this example, like if in what's this movie called? The Wonderful World of Oz or whatever. The Wizard of Oz, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. If you notice, in the very original Wizard of Oz, is, Dorothy used to always have silver shoes on her feet. You know what I'm saying? And this was because truly at that time, it was made in the early 1900s, like, 1912 when the book was written or something. But I know it was made early, and she used to have silver shoes because at that time, the money in the dollar was backed by silver. Okay. All right. So the silver carried our people, like she represented the Americans, and the silver carried our people on through the day, just like it carried her on through the movie, the silver slippers. Now, the funny part is, now after the Great Depression and the banks started crashing, and they redid the Wonderful World of Oz or whatever, the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy then had on red shoes. And the reason for Dorothy having red shoes is because, at the end of the day, the dollar at that time was now represented and backed by the U.S. people. All right, because the banks crashed in 1933 and they took all the gold and silver. So the dollar bills weren't backed by gold no more. So that's when they created the corporation. Everything was in full motion. And then that's when they had livestock. All right. And that's when the U.S. became backed by the full faith and credit of the people, which is why Dorothy had on red shoes, because it represented the blood of the people. OK, because that's what was carrying us as Americans through time now. It was our damn selves. Okay? And it's very important that we know that, man. This is when things got real, y'all. When they incorporated and became a corporation and made us the stocks of their damn corporation. Now, the black market and the financial conversion. Now, understand that we are slaves to the money here, And again, we weren't always using no damn dollar bills as Aboriginal people. Much of our American Aboriginal terms, words, and meanings were spread out throughout the world, especially intermingled in the Mongolian world. Like down there with the Hopi Indians in the Arizona area, a lot of that came, from us mixing in with the Mongoloids. And, that's why a lot of those, Aboriginals there have kind of more of the squinted eyes and things like that. That was kind of more where the Mongoloid influence was at, that came in and interbred with the Aboriginal peoples. Now, before Aboriginals used paper money, we were accustomed to trading things of beauty like Hishi beads as finance. We bartered, okay? And now Hishi beads, if let me just go on. Our women designed these necklaces from Aboriginal stones and beads in the local area. And, and women were always representations of beauty. That's what we as men always looked up to our women as beauty. Everything about the woman always represented that. Now, H-E-I is a female name in Chinese, and she is pronounced like she. You know what I'm saying? And if we know, she also in American English is also a representation of woman. Okay. Now in Hebrew, at the end of a word, he often indicates the word that a word is feminine, and it represents the divine feminine. Now, over the time, the oppressor introduced paper money for the exchange of assets to a lot of Aboriginal peoples. They would come to us and they would trick us and say, yo, I have this paper money and it can get you this house over here. You can use this paper money in our banking system to get these clothes and with everything that you need. Forget these beads, forget these, these beads that you have, and you can just use our paper money. And, of course, a lot of us left our culture, our heritage, just like how a lot of us leave the hood today, and we took on their system and left ours in the past. Okay. Now, Hishi is what we actually called our beads. And let me just say, an example, like if a man ever went off into the forest, went and caught some food and never came back, people in the village would come up to this man and be like, hey, I'll trade you, this many Hishi beads to get a leg and a thigh. You know what I'm saying? And we took those beads because those beads had value to them. They were beautiful. They were, they were stones, rocks, and things that, we're like, cool, well, here's this leg and thigh. Give me these beads. And these men would collect all these different beads every day. And then they would go home and take them to their wives and be like, make me a necklace or a chain or whatever. And these necklaces or chains would carry value to them. You know what I'm saying? Now, for instance, like let's say a man also owned land. Let's say he had 30 acres, and let's say he had 30 Hishi beads around his neck, and every single bead represented an acre. You see what I'm saying? If a man wanted to trade or give away some of his land, he would give away a bead, and that bead represented that piece of land over there. Okay, that's how we were doing. We were trading, we were bartering, y'all. We didn't have no dollar bills. We didn't need that. And if I had land and I wanted to pass it down to my son when I died, then they would just pass my chain down with all my Hishi beads and pass it down to my son, and he would inherit the land. That would be almost like our trust, almost. Those damn Hishi beads. We did everything through our trade, through Hishi. And it's just funny because the oppressor started, getting us off our market by giving our Hishi beads a negative connotation. Hishi in China means black market. Okay. And if we know, like, black market, they've always given us this connotation to kind of make it seem like it's bootleg or that it's fake, it's fraud or whatever. But we knew back in the day the he, she was really controlled by melanated people, which was why truly it was a market for melanated people, for blacks or whatever you want to call it. They just gave it a negative connotation and started calling it a black market and told them that it was the fraud. It was the, so a lot of times when we as people today even think about black market, we think of it with a negative tone. And that's the reason why, because they wanted you to get away from your own aboriginal currency. Boom. Just to introduce us to their dollars. All right. Now, like I said earlier, the dollar bill used to be backed by silver. Then in 1933, they flipped the game on us, created their corporation, had that going in full motion. They made us the livestock, and then they started, basically controlling us through those birth certificates, because those birth certificates were contracts that were pledges that made it, obligations that we had to fulfill those contracts of being a U.S. citizen, And if like I know, the United States is purely operating on contract law right now, y'all. Contract law, that's what they respect, the contracts. So it's very important that we understand and know that our people are slaves to this fake paper money that has no real true value. It's not backed by any gold, no silver, but we killing each other over it because we don't know how to barter or trade within ourselves. Certificate of live birth versus a birth certificate. All right. A certificate of live birth shows the birth of a living soul. A birth certificate shows the creation of a straw man, of an entity. Okay. Your name is in all caps on that birth certificate, but that certificate of live birth you usually get from the hospital always shows your name written in, uppercase, lowercase form, shown as a human. Now, your mother forced you into the corporation as an informant. It actually calls her an informant on the birth certificates down here in Texas. And that birth certificate is truly a deed of trust. All right. And a deed of trust is like an agreement between parties, and they have collateral to basically, fulfill, that trust obligation gets, fulfilled. You know what I'm saying? Basically, you have an obligation to the United States to be a good, faithful U.S. citizen. You know what I'm saying? And your body is the collateral for that contract. And if you don't fulfill your contract, they can snatch up your body as the collateral until you pay off the debt to release that collateral. It's kind of hard to explain. We'll probably have some lessons on what deeds of trust are and, and really real estate and stuff like that. But, we'll save that for another time. But anyway, you are forced to operate under contract until you legally take control over it. This is why they get your footprints and everything like that as a baby, because, of course, you can't sign your name in cursive and do all that other stuff. But, they can take your footprint and, make it to where, and your mom signs the contract for you. As the parent guardian and all this other kind of stuff. So yeah, they force you into it through contract, y'all. Yeah, and this is why another reason why you have to authenticate it and take control of it. But we'll get into that in the later part. Now, according to the IRS manuals, IRS 301-7701-7, trust, domestic and foreign. Now, it's very important to understand that, we as U.S. citizens are operating as a trust. All right. And a trust is a United States person. All right. A court within the United States is able to exercise primary supervision over the administrations over the trust. Any U.S. trust, basically any U.S. citizen is a trust, a domestic trust, and any court in the United States has the right to rule over your life. That's what they telling you when you are operating through that birth certificate just as a trust and you ain't took control of it and it's just abandoned. That means that they're in control of it. All right. And one or more United States persons have the authority to control all substantial decisions of the trust. Okay. All right. Now, in that same manual, it'll tell you a foreign trust cannot be controlled or administered by a U.S. court. Being a United States person means you are operating in a juridical status, okay, rather than acting as a natural man. Now, a natural man descends from human races, and juridical persons are artificial entities. The U.S. system can freely do whatever they want with their state property, with their own. The United States system can do whatever they want with their U.S. trusts, with their state property acting as juridical persons rather than the ones acting as natural beings. Okay? This is all about now acting as the natural beings, the ones that are operating under the republic that was created for the sovereign people. We got to go back and start acting like them. like your great grandparents. They were the sovereigns. Those are the ones we need to get back to acting like our sovereign great grandparents. Because acting as a jurisdictional person, as a U.S. citizen, is only making us a slave that can legally be controlled. Okay. Now, I took this example from here in Houston because I thought it was quite funny. Like I said, every single state, they have the sovereign republic, and then they have a corporation side, the public side, and which is really truly ran as a trust. And every single trust, as we know, always comes with what? It comes with bylaws, which in this trust, in this case here for every single state, their bylaws, proving that a trust was created, is the state constitution. Okay, that's the bylaws. This is proving that there's a trust that's in operation. Now, it's funny because the sheriff, he is a trustee of the state. Okay, all right, he's a trustee. Now, it's his job as the sheriff to either work for the sovereign, we the people of the state constitution. Those are the ones operating under the republic, the sovereign side. And then he has the ability to control, all right, the 14th Amendment shadow, okay, that are operating within his trust. Okay, so the sheriff's job is to protect we the people and control the shadow slaves. All right, his job is to protect the private citizens and control, all right, the public slaves. So let's read the description of, you can go to the website down here, the Harris County Sheriff Department, and they'll have the same description. It says the sheriff's office core values are merit and maintain the public's trust. Now, y'all probably thought it was just they talking about maintain the public's, trust and, love and care. No, that's not what he's talking about. They talking about the public as far as a corporation. They talking about it's his job to maintain the public's trust and make sure that all the property within the trust is being ran accordingly to how the Constitution is supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? Now, he'll work for the free man, but he'll slave and make sure that these codes and statutes are being asserted over the shadow. That's his job, to make sure he maintains the public trust, y'all. It's real simple. It's real simple, man. When you start understanding who's who in the system, you got to understand the game. This is business, my brothers and sisters. This is business, nothing personal. Now we're going to talk about this authenticated birth certificate, y'all. This is very important. All right. And well, first and foremost, I do want to say this too. Let me pull up the definitions of authentications first. Now, as you see, let's take a look at what authentication is, because you got a lot of brothers out here who are just, authentication mean you gonna go to jail, you gonna move. Now, listen, let's go down to the actual definitions. Now, this is according to the Cornell School of Law. 22 CFR 92.36 as the authentication defined. An authentication is a certification of the genuineness of the official character, a signature or seal, or the position of a foreign official. Here's the key words. Now listen. It is an act done with the intention of causing a document which has been executed or issued in one jurisdiction to be recognized in another jurisdiction. Okay? Understand, you have to get an authenticated version of your birth certificate so that it's a certified copy to the real one, to the original that they have in their Federal Reserve Bank. This is basically giving you the permission to take it from one jurisdiction and to be recognized in another jurisdiction as a certified copy. Okay, this is why you want to authenticate. Now, we tell people they have to authenticate and do it in a country like Jamaica, a non-hate country, just because that's the only way they're going to authenticate your document. Okay, you have to say something like Jamaica. And again, it'd be because you're taking it out of one jurisdiction to be recognized in another jurisdiction like Jamaica. Now, the catch is we are not really going to Jamaica. You are getting your paperwork authenticated so you can take it from one jurisdiction to what? your foreign jurisdiction of your foreign trust, y'all, because your trust is a nation that you are going to create. You are going to create a foreign trust, and you are going to control that instrument, that birth certificate, from your foreign trust. It's about owning nothing but controlling everything, and you're going to control all of your assets and entities attached to your life through a foreign trust. Period. Okay? Now, I just wanted to make sure that was understood. Now, we can go back to our regular scheduled programming. All right. Now, this is very important, again, that we understand this. We are to authenticate our birth certificate so we can use it in a foreign nation, as we just discussed. This foreign nation would be your tribe that you choose to create or that you choose to join. And again, too, when you get your birth certificate back, it's going to actually have the words authenticated, and it's going to say you're going to have full faith and credit in this instrument. Why? Because the United States is backed by the full faith and credit of the people. Okay? Now, you have full faith and credit in this birth certificate bond that's been on the stock market ever since you were young, and it's worth millions. Therefore, meaning that you could use this bond as full faith and credit to discharge your debt. But we'll get into that some other time. Estate planning and foreign trusts. All right, now we're almost done. Now, you must establish a DBA for your name in every county that you live in. You can change your ethnicity through the OMB department, which is to be done through a SF-181 document, which we kind of talked about earlier in the video. We were talking about identities and how to identify in their system, and what to check and what not to check. Again, we should always check off in these applications that we are American Indians. Okay. You must create a foreign trust through the IRS, which is a 98 number, and we have a lesson on that. In the estate planning, I believe it's number 2 or number 3, but we actually talk about, the taxes and the trust, the IRS forms and all that. And you want to copyright and trademark your name. And we also talk about that in the estate planning courses, and we explain that and walk you through it. And trademarking, you can do that actually through the state. And if you need a lawyer or somebody to help you with that because that might be too hard or whatever, you can watch some YouTube videos and see how to do it. But you definitely need to trademark your name on the state and national level. It's important that you trademark because, well, let me explain something to you. Like back in the slavery days or whatever, a lot of owners would always put brands, they would burn brands on their slaves. So basically, if they ever ran away, a slave catcher could always recognize the brand and realize who that slave belonged to, and honestly, if they were ever trading that brand, or trading that slave, or selling them or something, they'd have certain marks on these slaves, and that would show like, okay, that slave came from that plantation. We know that plantation usually has good property or good workers, or, that was a trade mark that they used to put on these brothers and sisters. You understand? That was a trade mark. Now, what you need to do is take control over that trademark and that brand that was made over your life. All right. Your name is your trademark. All right. And you need to take full control of that with a trademark through the state. And then you will also put that in your trust. All right. Now, you will construct a security agreement between your straw man and your foreign trust. Basically, this is just an agreement saying, hey, the foreign trust has the right and ability to control all the assets of the straw man. You also have only domestic trusts. U.S. trusts are to be taxed and administrated over. Now that you are moving through a foreign trust, this does not apply to you. They do not have the legal right to administer over a foreign trust. File a UCC over your estate property and put a lien on your security instrument so that no one can bring charges against them until first paying off your lien. Okay? All right? Nobody can bring a charge against your estate until they first, like, let's say you put a $1 billion lien through the UCC process, and we talk about this in the estate planning in the UCC lesson. Let's say you put a lien over your birth certificate instrument. No court, no anything like that can bring a charge against you until they first pay off that $1 billion lien. And if they cannot pay off that $1 billion lien, then their charge gets absorbed. It gets sucked up. It gets discharged. Okay? All right. And you can discharge you can discharge presentments against you by accepting for value and sending in a promissory note and just some other things. This is all high level commerce and discharging debt. And we kind of talk about that in other lessons on the website. And you can check those out because that's when you get into the promissory notes. But you need to be on the private side first. You need to be secured as a creditor within the system. And that's why we say it's important to do the estate plannings 1 through 5 first so that you can become private, so that you can become a private, secure party within their system so that you can properly discharge debt legally. Okay. Now, all steps, videos, and directions on the process can be found on iselflawandmaster.com. Now, just some of the examples and the things that we've built with this information that we've gotten. Basically, we've created our own plan, the MOOR Industries plan, and we've, gotten investors and we got people to back our movement. And now we've created something that's going to last forever for our people. Our plan was to create our own private network that people must subscribe to in order to access, because it is a private network and it's called the Omni Online. As of now, it only costs $1 a month to access it. And that's because, again, we had to make it private and we had to charge something. We couldn't make it free so that everybody could just walk in as they please. You have to pay something. Now, we have our own banking system that allows users to convert their US dollars to our digital cryptocurrency right over the web through our system. And then they can take that cryptocurrency that they've converted, and take it right into our digital online private market and shop. It's kind of like Chuck E. Cheese. People bring in their US dollars and they get tokens and they take those tokens to go play the games. And it's the same thing. They'll take these cryptocurrency tokens and they'll go to our digital market to go buy the things that they want. We will sell food, clothes, electronics, cannabis, and more, and ship everything privately directly to your doorstep. Okay. And we even have our own private university so that people can educate themselves, and which is called iSelf Law and Master. And that's the first company of our conglomerate that's really striving. We have over 400 subscribers now, over 2,000 users. And yeah, man, I mean, the consciousness and awareness is growing slowly but surely. So I give thanks. And yeah, this is the last slide. So we just want to say we give thanks for everybody who supported us, who's been behind us. We have so many new releases coming, so many things that we're here to give the people, man. And yeah, it's gonna be a wonderful year from 2019 and forever on. Thank you again. I give thanks, and come build with the king. Appreciate you, baby. It's Nation Liberation, D. Washita. It's iSelf Law, and we love y'all.